Welcome to this week's episode of Forgiving the Girl Inside. Today we have Coach Deveri with us, who's going to be sharing her healing journey from psychological abuse to emotional confidence. She has an incredible story, and if you're new to the channel, please be sure to hit the subscribe button, tap the bell. I'm your hostess, Lisa Drennan, and welcome, Deveri. How are you today?
Doing well. How are you today?
I'm doing okay. Thank you so much for asking. So I'm really excited to hear your journey. You have a lot going on. You're a certified Ula life coach. You
Yep.
love horses. You have a book in the works. Tell us
Yep.
some more about that.
Just received my ULA certification in February. I'd actually started that process in October. I am, people come to me. They're just come to me. They talk. A lot of times they tell me things that they haven't discussed or had no intention of discussing ever the rest of their lives. Um, I listen well. I've tried to think of why that is, and I think it's just because I listen very well to people, and I cut to the chase. Um, Stick with the facts, what actually happened, and a lot of times I will ask them what their role or responsibility in the outcome was. Um, I have a history of psychological abuse from my father. He was a narcissist. My mother was the poster child for guilt trips. She had that down to a science. Um, I lived with my mother the last 4 years of her life with my son. And then I was a guardian and conservator of my father the last 4 years of his life. After, I'm sorry, I have a cat rubbing on the phone. I'm surrounded right now. Like there's an entire crew keeping me company and more coming. So if the phone moves around, that's what happened.
That's what's going on.
That's what's going on. I have had horses off and on most of my life. See on the wall here, I have all my tails from now and before. I'm in my bedroom, but that's the most comfortable place to sit for me right now. The process of forgiveness. Did you have a question?
No, I was just going to ask you to tell us some more about the narcissist and how that affected your life before you realized it was, because it was from your father. So you grew up, like, how did you recognize it wasn't the right way to communicate with people?
Growing up with a narcissist, it was normal. I didn't realize, we knew back then something was not right, but my mother hid a lot from the kids. We would get locked outside and he would do unspeakable things to her. And we'd go, well, Mom, why can't we come in for lunch? Why can't we come in from playing? We need, we're hot, we're tired, we're thirsty. We'd go get a drink out of the hose or go play in the backyard where it's shady. And we're not allowed back in the house until whatever was transpiring was done. I remember, and she took the majority of the abuse, but in an abusive family, it's not limited to the abuser and the abusee. Everybody around that situation is affected. You can't pretend that if you're allowing someone to abuse you, that your children don't notice or that your children are not being affected. Or if you're allowing someone to abuse your children, I have an extreme opinion about this. You are just as guilty as that abuser. If you allow your children to be harmed at this person's hands. I'm very passionate about that. So growing up, we didn't see a lot of that until she divorced him when I was 14. But he had always said that they'd always told me that I was the adopted child. I was the mailman's kid. And he used that as an excuse that then I was free bait. That anything he could do to me is because I wasn't his genetic child. I escaped a lot of it just because my mother intervened. But I was molested by my father. I was molested by a family friend, emotionally destroyed. I was always, well, my sister was always the pretty girl and the smart girl and the popular girl. And you know what? It's not a competition, but what's that leave for me? You know, I could never
Right.
do anything good enough, fast enough, smart enough. Um, I was in high school. I really wanted to be on the pom squad. I was in the color guard and I did really well with that. And I was in band and I volunteered, but I really wanted to be on the pom pom squad. That was like the thing back in the 70s. And like a lot of little girls do, I would dance in the store and we'd be going in the stores and I'm just happy and dancing. And I just remember being crucified for expressing myself that way. Well, you're just too fat to be a dancer and you know, you don't have any talent. And it just wasn't true. Um,
Right.
that actually came from my mom. My dad was absent a lot of time. I think that saved a lot of the abuse for us. It would have been much worse if he had been present.
Mhm.
Graduated high school, hadn't seen him for quite a few years. He showed up uninvited and I just ignored him. He was hiding behind a corner. And as I was walking by, he jumped out at me. And
Oh
I'm
my
just,
goodness.
yeah, it was terrifying.
Yeah.
And I just kept walking. I didn't acknowledge his presence. I kept walking. Didn't see him again for about 30 years. Had no desire to see him. Um, that's almost true. He did try to impose himself in our lives when my son was little and was dating a woman 2 houses up from where we were living. But at no point did he financially support us, emotionally support us. It was all about Jack. Everything is about Jack because, you know, Jack is so damaged because you girls aren't paying attention to him. You know, it was always like narcissists do.
Right.
And I'm just at the point, I was at that point, I was like, I'm just not having it. You know what? You were the grown up and I was the child, and it is your responsibility to take care of us. It is your responsibility to protect us. And sorry, I've got a dog and a cat issue here. Um, the cat is sneaking up on the dog's bowl and the dog is not having it. But you know, as an
Protected
adult,
territory.
yeah, yeah, and he's not, well, here, they're not being, it's a standoff. Um, but as a
Very.
child, yeah, as a child, that's too much responsibility to expect of a kid. I didn't have
Yeah.
the emotional maturity to handle any of that. You're the grown-ups. You need to protect children. You need to figure this out. And you know, as a parent, if your child is being abused or neglected or you know, even harmed in any way by someone that is too harsh,
Mhm.
it is your responsibility to step in and save that child, protect that child, preserve innocence as long as possible. It's a rough world when you get to be an adult. So just
Yeah.
let kids be kids. Just let them be children for a while. Well, fast forward to 2016,
16.
2015. I was just thinking how long it had been. You know, I moved on, did my thing, raised my kid, um, bought a house with my mom. We shared until she passed away in 2006. And we'd been there 4 years. And then life just went crazy. And 10 years later, I got a phone call from Elder Services. He had listed me as an emergency contact. Now, by this time, he has threatened away everybody who ever tried to help him. He's
Mhm.
living in a hoarded house that is up to your eyeballs in stuff covered in food. Um, he goes out every day, almost every day, and spends, you know, $2 at the Quick Star and $3 at this store. He's looking for people. He has managed to extricate everyone who's ever cared about him from his life because of his mannerisms, to the point of threatening family members with guns if they didn't leave his house. Um, and then he's, desperately seeking human contact by going out to these stores and chatting up the cashiers and talking to people in the stores because you're desperate for human contact.
Right.
So someone had sold him 2 full-size freezers. One was full of red meat and one was full of fish and seafood. The man claimed to be a vegetarian. So $5,000, they convince him he needs these 2 giant chest freezers of meat. He can't get them in the house because the house is so hoarded. He parks them in the backyard and plugs them in an extension cord. And over the winter, the compressors fail. So you can imagine the stench. And the city shows up on the door going, Jack, you've got to get rid of these. Your neighbors are having a problem with the smell in your yard. And this is mental illness. He is having a fit because they're stealing his property and that meat is still good. The packages were black. The mold was so bad you couldn't even read the label. And he is going, I'm going to eat that. I'm going to eat that. Hang on just a second. Thank you. My son just came up the stairs. He must have just got home. So the aging services, that was the city. He had called me or gave the city woman my phone number. I hadn't talked to him in years. I missed the story, but that's okay. And said, hey, can you come over and help your dad? So I sat on the porch and distracted him while the city literally backed a dump truck up to his yard, hazmat suits, the whole 9, cleaned out these 2 freezers and 4 other appliances in the backyard and took them away while he's yelling, they're stealing my things. They're stealing my things. They took that meat. That meat's good. Complete denial.
What made you want to help him after what you had gone through and being separated from him for over 30 years? When you got that phone call, what did you feel like? I mean, did you just stop what you're doing and go over there? I mean, what compelled you to want to help him?
I did. First of all, my faith, I'm Christian. And the Bible doesn't say honor your mother and father if they're good to you or if they provide for you or if they didn't abuse you. It just says honor your mother and father. Period. Second of all, mental health is not taken care of in this country. It has been demonized and criticized, and people with mental health issues are not being taken care of.
Right.
I've had a lot of people ask me that question, and those are really the only answers I have.
Those are great answers. Yeah. And so did the relationship repair itself after? I mean, so you obviously connected with him and you had to be there while he was upset about this happening, what, he had perceived happening with his property. So how did you end up building a relationship with him and resolving the past hurt?
Well, I think I was wrong. This was back in 2013. So I started helping him clean up his yard. Because that was the first thing that the city was threatening to come just bring a bulldozer over and bulldoze the house down. It was so bad. So we got a dumpster, started cleaning up the yard, and he was participating. So, we're cleaning out this shed. I specifically remember this, and I had 5 2-man seining nets that had been in mud for who knows how long. And he thought he needed to keep all of them. I was like, okay, Jack. Okay, it's a 2-man net, first of all. You can't run it yourself. You have to have somebody else. And you have 5 of them, and they're rotten. Let's throw 4 away and keep the 1. So we negotiated down to 3, but he was participating. I had 2 strokes in 2016. And then, so I didn't go back. And then he was very angry. 2015. He was very angry that I never showed up again. Well, he was in and out of the hospital every 3 months from fragile diabetic and alcoholism because he was drinking uh, Everclear about 2 to 3 fifths a week as a
Wow.
fragile diabetic. So every 3 months he was going to the hospital, vomiting blood. I had tried to get power of attorney, but he was so brilliant. He would answer all the psychiatrist questions in the order they were presented with the correct answers. And they're like, he knows what he's supposed to do. We can't keep him. You know, in spite of me providing them 300 pictures of what they're returning him to, no running water, no heat, and they're sending him back home to this house. By 2016, he had actually hired somebody to put everything back in the yard that we'd put in the dumpster, and then block the dumpster from the people to come pick it up. So he had to keep paying for it. This was an adventure. By 2016, are you there? Okay.
Yeah.
I got a call from my aunt. Everybody kind of kept an eye on him, even though we kept their distance. And she's like, nobody's seen Jack's car move in about 3 days. And it was mid-December. It was like 20 below. And this man has no heat, no running water in his house. So the family is like, all right, do we need to intervene? And we were just talking about calling for a wellness check with the police when I got a call from Aging Services because I was still in their records as an emergency contact. He had emerged from the house, crawled to the neighbor's house, gangrene, severe dehydration, malnourished, confused.
So you had to show up there at his house and see him in this state of mind, in this physical and emotional state of being. How did that affect you?
They had actually gotten him to the hospital. They
Okay.
convinced him to go to the hospital. So he was not in danger anymore. But at this point, I'm like, this has got to stop. And me and his younger sister were the only two people who were willing to help him. How would you turn your back on that?
Right.
How could someone with any conscience turn your back on that in spite of everything that happened?
Yeah. So how did you process that though? So I mean, you grew up with this image and this connection that was very negative. So did it just kind of, I mean, I know you're a strong believer in your faith. Is that what propelled you to say, okay, I don't look at you as that person. I see you now as who you are. And you kind of like forgot about the way that you were brought up and the things that had happened.
You never forget.
Right.
But you can leave the room and close the door. As one of the other podcasts I was on, I just described it as not being in the room with the abuse anymore, but looking through the window. It happened, it's done. I can choose to live the rest of my life being angry and upset because I had no control over that. Or I can allow those lessons to make me a more compassionate person. You have a choice.
Right. So you chose to forgive, and that's how you merged towards emotional confidence. Was there a pivot point in your life that where your heart and your mind connected with that conclusion? Or did it just kind of happen gradually?
Yeah, there was a time in 2013, he had a brain injury and decided he wanted to reconnect with people, and it was calling everybody. And I said, okay. And I met him at Hy-Vee. And the first thing he said to me was, "Oh, it's you. I thought your sister was coming." Okay, great. The second thing he said to me was, "You're not my biological daughter. I've signed the birth certificate, but you're not really my child." And the third thing he said to me was, "I've always had sexual fantasies about you. So if you want to, be a couple and have sex, we could do that."
Wow.
But the second thing he said to me released me from all responsibility. If I am not your biological child, I have absolutely no obligation to help you. And that changed everything.
And you chose to help them.
I chose to help him. God put me in that place, showed him grace, literally demonstrated grace to him. I found a lawyer that was absolutely amazing. Went into her office and she said, I'm like, this rotation has to stop. We're going to end up having him dead in the house and I'll just burn the thing down. I am not cleaning that up. I said, so we need to get him into a guardianship conservative because he has proven he is not capable of choosing to take care of himself. And she, after a conversation, she said, okay, meet me up at the hospital on Monday morning, 8:00. You, me, his sister, and the doctor that's been treating him for 5 years, who I've already been in contact with or already had a relationship with. And she had the papers ready and she said, listen, Jack, you can sign these papers today and it will cost you $500. Or we can go to court and it will cost you $5,000. And he said, give me those papers. And he signed them. He did not know what that meant. What that did is gave me the authority to get him the help he needed. So once he had his toes amputated, was recovering from the being in the house. And I took him to a care center an hour and a half away because he was already plotting to leave the care center, plug in a extension cord from the house and live in the shed. Because he was going home.
That was familiar to him.
Yep. That was his safe place.
Did you ever tell him that you forgave him?
Yeah.
How did that conversation go?
Well, the day that he said those terrible things to me, I said, you broke a brush on my butt one day because my sister, we were taking groceries in and her only job was to hold the door open. So she stood in the door and blocked me getting in while I had my hands full of groceries. And I used my leg and I opened the door and I pretty much ran her over. And I was beaten for it. And he said, that wasn't your fault. I was mad at your mother that day. I shouldn't have taken it out on you. And then later he did say to other people, never to me directly, I don't know what I would do without her. And I just said, listen, it's 30 years ago. It's past. It's defined my compassion in life. It's defined who I am. But also you don't go through any controversial times without gaining depth.
Right. So
people that have had, charmed lives where mom and dad love you and you get what you need and what you want. And they're sometimes so easily judgmental about, oh, I would have done this or I would have done that. Yeah. Unless you're in that situation, you really don't know what you would have done or what you're capable of overcoming.
Yeah, it's a vulnerable time. I mean, I was in a narcissist gaslighting relationship, came from a very dysfunctional family, and I didn't know that families weren't like that. And I didn't know, I was so hungry for somebody to love me that when I got into the relationship with a narcissist, I had no idea that that's not how relationships are supposed to be. And my friends were in the same similar situations as well. So until I started moving away and really observing and thinking, why am I I'm miserable? I'm not even happy. Why do I keep doing this? Why do I keep going back? And the learned behavior, the familiarity becomes too familiar to the point where you get scared and you're like, well, when we talk about the fear blocker, that fear keeps you paralyzed. It keeps you stuck. Right. So it's incredible how your strength, this overcame all of that, and you were able to say and just be healthy enough and say, what, I'm done, I'm moving forward, and to go back and to help that person, to help that perpetrator, and just be there for them in the most vulnerable time of their life. That's just a beautiful, beautiful story. So is that your mission? Is it to help people be more aware and how to overcome that? Or can you tell us what your mission statement is? how you're helping and serving others?
I think my mission is to help people realize their value
Mm-hmm.
and to realize it was just an experience. Okay, in a lot of ways, it defines how you respond to other new experiences, but it also is a lighthouse to help other people avoid having to go through what you've gone through, where you can
Right.
say, when I run into a narcissist now, I'm just like, I'm out. I'm not even crossing the threshold. You're going to have to deal with that one.
Yeah.
But
They're easily
companions,
recognized, aren't they?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Once you've been down that road, it's like, nope. And I'll call them out. And that
Mhm.
nothing makes them madder than when you say, listen, your behavior is having this effect on your family or your loved one, or I notice these behaviors in you. Is that really what's the outcome? What is it
Mhm.
in this situation? What do you want to happen?
Yeah. Is this what your book is about? What's your book about?
No,
Tell us more about
my book
that.
is about my horse.
Okay.
Um, I have not sat down to write these out yet. I've spoken about them and experiences a number of times. Um, my book is My Boy Hank. It's caring for an older horse. After my strokes, he came to me as a therapy horse and helped me regain my confidence and my
Oh,
balance. And he took care of me. He is such a good boy. He just died on January 25th.
I'm sorry. So
Yeah.
it'll be a beautiful story once you publish it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the therapy horses I've heard have done a lot of benefited a lot of people in different ways.
Yep.
I have a client that is her the plan for her, the anointed horse, Jessica Hale. She's got a beautiful mission to help women in recovery, and
Oh,
she talks about how the horses helped her
yep.
in her healing journey. So it's amazing how the animals are really here to help us. And like, I know you have your fur babies, I have my fur
Yep.
babies. It's
Yep.
like so much comfort, especially when, you're going through an emotional struggle or you're processing, mourning or whatever it is that you're doing. So tell us, what kind of programs do you offer to help people to transform with purpose, to make a difference, to go from chaos to calm?
Um, I'm still working on that. I don't have a specific program. I have a passion for young people,
Well, you have
young
a ULA
adults.
program, right? Yeah.
Yep, I do.
Are you going to incorporate that anyway into your programs?
Absolutely. That's put more focus on my actual programs. Um,
Mm-hmm.
my son has all his life brought a string of needy people home, people that just other kids primarily that just
Mm-hmm.
needed somebody to give them a good meal and tell them they loved them and wrap their arms around them.
Yeah.
I'm still getting young people in my life. And I have a passion for pre-retirees because I was not prepared for retirement. Um,
Okay.
I was
Are you
ready for
old enough for
retirement.
retirement?
I retired in August of last year.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Yep. And then, so I've spent the last 6 months going, wee, and now I need to get focused and get back
3 years
into it.
ago. And
Yep.
3 years ago, I'm looking forward to that wee moment.
Yes. I've had a blast for 6 months.
Yeah, I
Um,
can
but I need to
imagine.
get more focused into what I'm doing.
Yeah.
As far as a link, it would be I'm doing the ambassador the ambassador with ULA. So right
Mhm.
now, a lot of my focus is on building that team
Mhm.
and introducing ULA to the people that I come in contact with and helping them understand why this is going to be an amazing change in their life.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be epic. I'm
Yep.
1V7. So
Yep.
excited about it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey.
Welcome.
It was very personable and lots of details, and
Yep.
there's just a strong confidence, and I just love how you were able to reach out and help the person that normally so many people just hang on to that misery, and just releasing that forgiveness and accepting and valuing that person as a whole and not looking at what they've done, because we've all done things, we've all made mistakes, we've all had you know, toxic things that we've given out, you know, to cause relationships not to work. So for you to be able to implement that modality of living balanced in those key areas, and forgiveness was just probably the biggest thing for you in your faith. Thank you. I know that can resonate with a lot of people who will see this. And so when you do, the viewers out there watch this, you want to get in contact and learn more about this modality, you know, reach out. Deveri's link will be in the link. You know, you can check out her, I mentioned we're gonna put your Facebook group or your website link in there. However she wants to
Okay.
connect, it'll be in the description box. And if you know somebody who's dealing with this sort of thing, you know, definitely reach out, share this video with them, tag
Yeah.
them in it. And thank you so much for being here. And thank you again.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.